Chosen one, this message didn't find you by accident. God led you here for a reason. You may feel like you've been buried under betrayal, heartbreak, silence, and spiritual warfare. But I need you to hear this clearly: you were never buried to be forgotten. You were planted to rise. You've loved like Jesus. You've forgiven like him. You've stayed when others walked away. You've served when no one clapped. You've remained pure when everything around you was polluted. And now, just like him, you're about to be raised in power, purpose, and public recognition. This is a divine moment, not because you're chasing validation, but because God is about to vindicate you. Let's break this down into 7 chapters so your spirit can absorb the weight and glory of this message. Before we dive in, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, because this isn't just a message. It's a prophetic confirmation straight from the throne of grace. You didn't stumble upon this. Heaven led you here because your resurrection season is already in motion. If your spirit resonates with this frequency, type 77 in the comments right now. That number isn't just symbolic, it's spiritual. It represents divine completion and resurrection power. It's your public agreement with heaven that you're ready to rise into the version of yourself that can no longer be crucified by old pain. Not everyone will stay until the end. But if you do, you'll gain revelation, restoration, and resurrection. God is about to breathe life into every part of you that was buried under betrayal, heartbreak, silence, and sacrifice. And this isn't a message you listen to just once. This is resurrection oil. And every time you hear it, another dead place inside of you will come back to life. So replay it. Reflect on it. Let it transform you until your spirit stands up like Lazarus at the sound of your name. You loved like Jesus. Now you're about to rise like him. Let's begin. Chapter 1. You loved when you had every reason to leave. Chosen one, what you did wasn't ordinary. It wasn't weak. It wasn't naive. It was divine. One of the most Christ-like things you've ever done was choose love when you had every reason to shut down. You could have walked away and no one would have blamed you. You could have turned cold and bitter and numb. And honestly, people would have understood. But you didn't. You stayed soft in a world that tried to harden you. You stayed available to God while people took advantage of your heart. You forgave betrayal that was never acknowledged. You honored people who dishonored you in secret. You helped carry burdens that weren't even yours. You prayed for healing in lives that caused brokenness in yours. You stayed faithful in friendships and relationships that didn't return the same loyalty. You extended grace where you were only ever met with silence, suspicion, or selfishness. That's the kind of love Jesus modeled. And you mirrored it. Remember, Jesus washed the feet of Judas, the same one who would betray him with a kiss. He sat at the table with Peter, knowing he would deny him 3 times. He wept over the city that would later call for his crucifixion. And from the cross, as he bled and gasped for air, he didn't curse his accusers, he prayed for them. He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And chosen one, in your own way, you've done the same. You've forgiven what was never owned. You've covered people with kindness who uncovered your weaknesses with gossip. You've been loyal in rooms where your name was only spoken with contempt. You've sown love into ground that never showed fruit. And still, you didn't regret it. That's not just Christ-like, that's prophetic. That's powerful. That's spiritual warfare through compassion. Every time you kept your peace instead of seeking revenge, heaven recorded it. Every time you wept quietly but still showed up for others with joy, angels stood beside you. Every time you whispered prayers for people who never prayed for you, the spirit realm shifted in your favor. You think nothing came of it because it wasn't loud or visible. But the greatest seeds are sown in silence. And now, just like Jesus, the season of resurrection is here. The love that didn't make sense back then is about to be your launching pad now. God is raising you in front of the very people who misread you, not as a show of pride, but as a sign of his promise. He's turning what you gave in pain into purpose. He's transforming every quiet sacrifice into supernatural strength. He's breathing life into everything that looked dead. You didn't just love like Jesus, you endured like him. And because you walked that road of silent suffering, you're now stepping into a public elevation. This is your rise. This is your recompense. This is your proof that heaven never forgets hearts that look like Christ, even when they're broken. So lift your head. God saw it all. And now, love is about to lift you. Chapter 2, They mocked you because they didn't understand you. Chosen one, let's be clear, what you went through wasn't because you were weak. It was because you were being transformed. People mocked what they didn't understand. They misjudged what they couldn't discern. Just like Jesus, you were misunderstood, not because you were wrong, but because they weren't ready for the truth you carry. Jesus wasn't just crucified. He was misquoted, misrepresented, and mislabeled. He was accused of blasphemy, of rebellion, of being a threat to the very system he came to fulfill. People saw him healing, teaching, and loving, but still questioned his divinity. They didn't understand how someone so humble could carry such heavenly authority. And the same has happened to you. They couldn't see your heart because they were blinded by their own hurt. They focused on your failures, not your faith. They whispered about your process, never realizing it was God himself doing the pruning. They mocked your calling because they couldn't comprehend your mantle. You became the subject of rumors, the target of betrayal, the topic at tables where you were never invited, because your light convicted their darkness. Your purpose made their comfort uncomfortable. But hear this, God allowed it not to shame you, but to shape you. He let them laugh. He let them leave. He let them label you incorrectly, because their rejection was his redirection. Every misunderstanding became a layer of protection. Every lie spoken about you built the foundation of the truth God was establishing in you. You weren't being punished. You were being preserved. God hid you in plain sight. He covered your true identity until it was the right time to be revealed. Just like Jesus went into the tomb looking one way and came out in resurrected power, you too are about to emerge unrecognizable to those who only knew your pain, not your promise. The version of you they talked about, laughed at, dismissed, and denied, that version was dying. That version was going through spiritual surgery. That version was shedding ego, pride, people-pleasing, and the need for external validation. They judged the crucified version of you. They watched you bleed and assumed you were broken. But what they didn't realize is that a resurrection was in process. Now God is raising up the real you, the healed you, the anointed you, the one who doesn't need approval to move, the one who doesn't need applause to obey, the one who knows who you are even when others don't. And when you rise this time, it won't be with bitterness. It'll be with power, with clarity, with wisdom forged in fire, with the kind of grace that only grows in lonely places. Don't worry about who laughed. Don't worry about who left. Don't worry about who doubted. Because the same mouths that mocked you will marvel at the move of God in your life. Just like Jesus, you're about to appear to people who thought it was over for you, but they won't even recognize you, because resurrection changes everything. Chapter 3. You sacrificed what they worshipped. Chosen one, listen carefully. This part of your journey was never going to be glamorous. It wasn't designed to get you praise. It was designed to make you powerful. While others ran toward what looked shiny, you chose what was sacred. While they bowed to culture, you surrendered to the kingdom. While they worshipped position, money, likes, and applause, you laid it all at the feet of God and said, "Your will, not mine." This is what separates you. While people pursued platforms, you pursued purity. While they were chasing validation, you were chasing God's voice. You gave up the fast route. You walked away from toxic circles that celebrated your talent but dishonored your soul. You silenced your ambition when it started to speak louder than your anointing. You were offered rooms you could have forced your way into, but the Holy Spirit said, "Wait, I'll prepare a better one. And you obeyed. That wasn't weakness. That was warrior obedience. That was you choosing the altar over the algorithm. That was you choosing to be refined in private instead of being applauded in public before your character was ready to carry the weight of your calling. Even Jesus had a moment in the wilderness where he was tempted by the enemy with all the kingdoms of the world, if only he would bow down. But he didn't. He knew who he was. And you've done the same. You said no when it would have been easier to say yes. You chose crucifixion over convenience. You walked away not because you were afraid to fail, but because you refused to succeed at the wrong thing. You let go of relationships you loved because they weren't aligned. You passed on jobs that promised more money because they would have choked your purpose. You let go of habits that helped you cope because you wanted healing, not just relief. You sacrificed your name in rooms where lies were told because you didn't need to clap back. You trusted God to speak for you. And let's be honest, it hurt. It felt like loss, like grief, like death. And in a way, it was. You died to what your flesh wanted so your spirit could rise. You surrendered what was comfortable so God could give you what was consecrated. But what they worshipped is now becoming their bondage. And what you released is becoming your blessing. Because now God is stepping in. Now the same things you sacrificed in silence are being rewritten as seeds, seeds that are about to sprout with supernatural reward. What you gave up for obedience is about to return as abundant overflow. What you turned away from out of discipline is about to be replaced with destiny. You didn't just walk away. You walked towards something higher, towards something holy. And heaven recorded it. God saw the late nights you cried, wondering if you made the right choice. He saw the moments you almost went back. He heard the silent prayers you whispered in the dark, Lord, I trust you even though this hurts. Now, just like Jesus, your obedience is about to provoke a resurrection. God is about to reward you openly for what you sacrificed secretly. Get ready. The tables are turning, and what you gave up out of faith is coming back dressed in favor. Chapter 4. Your silence was louder than their slander. Chosen one of the greatest tests you faced wasn't physical. It was spiritual. It was the test of restraint. The fire you had to endure wasn't just in the trials you faced. It was in the discipline you had to keep when people lied on your name, twisted your words, and dragged your reputation through the dirt. While you said nothing, you didn't correct every rumor. You didn't clap back on social media. You didn't gather the screenshots or build a case. You didn't run around trying to prove your innocence or beg people to stay. You did the hardest thing a person with truth on their side can ever do. You stayed silent. And that silence, it was thunder in the spirit realm. Jesus did the same. When brought before Pilate, accused of things he never did, marked by the very people he came to save, he said nothing. Not because he was weak, but because he was sure. Sure of his assignment. Sure of who sent him. Sure that heaven's voice would be louder than man's accusation. He knew the truth didn't need a defense. It just needed time. And so do you. God saw how you held your tongue. How you stayed calm when the lies could have ruined you. How you cried in private instead of exploding in public. How you chose to forgive even when people were using your name like a weapon. That wasn't weakness. That was divine wisdom. That was heavenly strength. That was you choosing purpose over pettiness. They wanted a reaction. They were hoping for a meltdown. They wanted you to go low so they could say, see, we were right about them. But instead, you let the Lord fight your battles. You knew the truth didn't need you to shout. It just needed you to stand. And now, God is about to respond on your behalf. Every door that was closed because of a lie, He's reopening. Every platform that was denied to you because of slander, He's elevating. Every room where your name was mishandled, He's sending your fruit ahead of you to speak louder than any false story ever could. This is not about revenge. It's not about proving the haters wrong. It's about proving heaven right. It's about resurrection. What looked like death to your reputation is about to be the birthplace of your greatest revelation. They thought your silence meant defeat. But they were wrong. Your silence was sacred strategy. And now, the same people who whispered about you in darkness will have to watch God honor you in daylight. The same ones who said you'd never make it will be the ones who can't explain how you did. Your elevation will confuse them, but it will glorify God. You didn't have to scream to be seen. You didn't have to fight to be favored. You didn't have to retaliate to be redeemed. God is your defender. And now that the test is over, the verdict is coming in. The lies will fall. The truth will rise. And the very people who tried to bury you with their words will have to bow to what God is raising through your life. Because your fruit, chosen one, is about to speak louder than their slander ever did. Chapter 5. The grave didn't end Jesus, it exposed his power. Chosen one, what looked like a defeat was actually a divine setup. The cross was brutal. The grave was cold. The silence of Saturday felt final. But what the world didn't realize was this: Jesus wasn't finished, he was fulfilling. Every nail, every wound, every drop of blood was not a sign of failure. It was a signal of something sacred. And the moment they sealed that tomb, they unknowingly sealed their own defeat. Because the grave didn't end him, it revealed him. And that's where you are. You've been through your own cross, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the exhaustion, the silence. You've been mocked for your calling, overlooked in rooms where you carried the most light. You've watched people walk away when you needed them most. You've laid in the grave of grief, disappointment, confusion, and spiritual fatigue. You felt like something in you died, your passion, your confidence, your trust. But here's the truth: the grave couldn't keep you because it didn't own you. You were never buried to be forgotten. You were planted to be revealed. That darkness you sat in, it wasn't punishment. It was preparation. That stillness you endured, it wasn't abandonment. It was alignment. God wasn't ignoring you. He was developing you, protecting your anointing, maturing your faith, detoxing your identity from everything that wasn't from him. Like Jesus, you had to go through a process that looked like the end, but it was just the middle. Because resurrection isn't the return of who you were. It's the arrival of who you were always meant to be. The grave of depression didn't stop you. It slowed you down long enough to hear God clearly. The grave of burnout didn't finish you. It forced you to stop striving and start surrendering. The grave of betrayal didn't harden you. It deepened your discernment. The grave of confusion didn't derail you. It sharpened your vision. Chosen one, God is about to show the world that what they thought was your tomb was actually your womb. What they thought buried you actually birthed you. What they thought was over is just beginning. This is not about bouncing back. This is about breaking through. You're not coming back to where you were. You're rising into who you are. You're stepping out of the shadows with divine clarity. You're walking out of that grave with new oil, fresh fire, and unstoppable favor. And when you rise, you won't just be restored, you'll be reintroduced. Because resurrection is not a metaphor. It's not just a feeling. It's a moment, a divinely appointed, heaven-ordained shift in the spirit where God says, now. Now the weight lifts. Now the light breaks in. Now the doors open. Now the grave lets go. Chosen one, your moment is now. Get ready, because what's about to rise out of you will be undeniable. The same people who thought your story was over are about to see glory come out of your grave, not because of your strength, but because of the power that raised Jesus and now lives in you. Chapter 6. You're about to rise in a form they've never seen. Chosen one, when Jesus rose from the grave, even the people who had walked with him, who had loved him, couldn't recognize him at first. He looked too different, too glorious, too transformed. Mary stood before him and thought he was the gardener. The disciples on the road to Emmaus walked with him and didn't know it was him until he broke the bread. Why? Because his resurrected form wasn't just restored, it was glorified. And that's the kind of rise God has planned for you. You're not coming back as the version they crucified. You're not returning to the world carrying the same pain, the same insecurities, or the same weight. That season buried something in you, but it also birthed something in you. The you that's about to emerge is not a copy of who you were. It's the completion of who you were always called to become. You're about to rise healed, not hiding. Clear, not confused. Humbled, not hardened. Anointed, not anxious. Wise, not wounded. They saw you in your trial, but they didn't see what the trial taught you. They saw you in the fire, but they didn't see how God refined you. They heard the rumors, but they didn't know the revelation you were carrying in silence. What you're about to walk into cannot be explained. It can only be witnessed. You won't have to prove yourself, your fruit will speak. You won't have to defend yourself, your elevation will declare the truth. You won't have to explain what happened in the dark, the glow will give it away. Because this rise isn't cosmetic. It's cosmic. It's divine. It's unstoppable. It's sacred. People will say, is that the same person who used to be quiet? Who went through that storm? Who got left behind? And the answer will be, yes, but no. Yes, you went through it, but no, you're not who you were in it. That version of you died. And what's rising now is wrapped in purpose, crowned with peace, and soaked in power. This is your divine unveiling. You're not just being blessed, you're being revealed. Not just reintroduced, reimagined by God. The pain shaped your posture. The betrayal sharpened your vision. The silence stretched your spirit. And now, you carry something weighty, something holy, something undeniable. Your voice will carry wisdom beyond your age. Your presence will shift atmospheres. Your decisions will unlock generational doors. Your walk will disturb the spiritual realm. They'll look at you and wonder, how? And heaven will whisper, by my spirit. This transformation isn't about proving your haters wrong. It's about proving God's process right. This glow is not a trend. It's the result of obedience in the shadows. You said yes when no one clapped. You sacrificed what others worshipped. You kept walking when your legs were trembling. And now the oil is visible. Now the light is unstoppable. Now the glory is tangible. You loved like Christ. You served like Christ. You endured like Christ. And now, chosen one, you will rise like Christ. Not in arrogance, but in authority. Not to show off. They thought they buried you, but what they didn't know is that God was only getting started. Chapter 7. This is your resurrection season. Chosen one, take a deep breath and let this settle into the deepest part of your soul. Resurrection is not just a comeback, it's a divine unveiling. It's not just about returning, it's about returning renewed, refined, and repositioned. When God resurrects someone, He doesn't bring them back to where they were. He launches them into where they were always meant to be. This is your resurrection season. You've been hidden long enough. You've been in the wilderness, in the cave, in the shadows, not because God forgot you, but because He was forming you. And now, the cocoon is cracking. The stone is rolling. The silence is breaking. You're rising. The pain that tried to suffocate you is now part of your message. The people who tried to bury you are now witnesses to your bloom. The voices that said you'll never recover are about to be silenced by the evidence of God's hand on your life. This is bigger than restoration, it's resurrection. The kind where you come back stronger than they remember. The kind where your scars shine brighter than your past. The kind where people ask, so now, walk in it, not in shame, but in resurrection strength. Not in fear, but in holy fire. Not in doubt, but in the unshakable confidence of someone who has seen the grave and walked back out. Because just like Jesus, you loved when it hurt. You forgave when it was unfair. You kept giving when you were empty. You stayed pure when it would have been easier to conform. You held on when everything told you to let go. And now, just like Jesus, you will rise. Not just rise for yourself, but rise for your bloodline. Rise for the ones watching. Rise for the prayers your ancestors whispered. Rise for the mantle you were born to carry. This is your moment, chosen one. Heaven is backing you. Angels are surrounding you. Grace is clothing you. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop what God has already written.